All right, good morning, guys. Wave meteorologist Brian Goode here with you all on this sunny, bright and sunny on this Tuesday, the 8th of October. Apologize in advance. We've had a couple of power flashes here at the station, so I'm not sure if we're on backup generator here or not, but I think everything looks good here. So if something seems weird on your end as you're watching, let me know. And if we are on a backup power, that may switch us back to the main power. Sometimes you can get a small glitch when that happens too, but there's nothing major going on. Just want to let you guys know if I suddenly become max headroom, then you know why. And if you know who max or what max headroom is, then type 1 into the chat and you will get bonus points that I will add onto my list and put a gold star next to your name. I will save onto that one. Hope you all are well. Welcome to the blog. Today it's pretty laid back in the sense that our weather is quiet, so main focal point is going to be on what is obviously going on into the Gulf of Mexico and what's happening here with Milton and what we've noticed so far with it. There's a lot of information that's out there. Obviously, just about every meteorologist is talking about it, even some that are not meteorologists, but one day want to be are talking about it. It's got the meteorology community in general all up in arms on social media. So there's a lot of information out there. And as always the case, whether it's our local weather or national weather setup, please make sure that you are checking when you're getting some sources fed to you on your feeds on social media or TikTok, whatever the case may be. Make sure it's from an organization, news organization, or a government agency, because we're the ones coordinating together to type all this out and work together. We have conference calls for a reason to make sure we're giving out the right info. But if someone is sending out info without having that kind of training, things get really off the rails quickly because it gets to people that are in danger or impacted already, and it really creates an emotional distress on them, and we really just don't want to put anybody in that. So you guys always consider our junior meteorologists, so I appreciate you all being one of the best communities we've got here. So I know you guys wouldn't allow that to happen to begin with, right? All right, so let's start with a couple things. I believe we're going to begin with our local weather briefly before I get back into the setup with Milton. Okay, so at least want to mention we've got 50s out there now. Yes, it has been a cool morning across wave country. We dipped to 51 at Ali International. Not the coolest we've been in the late summer, early autumn season here. We did that in early September. But we did have a 39 in Meade County. My house was about 47 this morning. So it was cool, no doubt. It was everyone, I'm sure several of you had the button warmers on this morning when you went out to the car. And even if you did, you probably wouldn't type into a chat. But anyway, you get the idea. All right, 54, the current number now. Still got 42 into Bedford, 46 into Jennings County into Indiana. All right, we are quiet here. In fact, I mean, the satellite is working, radar is working. Check. There's just nothing to track or see. It's just so quiet. But boy, you get into the Atlantic and the Gulf, it's hard not to see Milton, which has gone through some changes. Went through one of the fastest records ever on going from a tropical storm to a high-end Cat 5 hurricane yesterday in about a 24 to about 36-hour window, setting records on pressure as well as the fourth most intense hurricane really in general. When it comes to the pressure side of things, I believe it's only number 2 in the Gulf of Mexico in wind, right behind Hurricane Rita in 2005. So it's setting records. It's not even close to being done. So that's never a good sign. During the night while you were asleep, the eye went through what we call an eye replacement cycle. This is typical for anything. I always refer to these as the engines of Earth. I mean, these are the main drivers for a lot of weather patterns that evolve down the line. I mean, weeks down the line, these can be the catalyst to start all of that and change weather patterns dramatically. I mean, even typhoons, which is the same thing as this, just different name, typhoons in Japan and to the Western Pacific can eventually cause wintry weather in the eastern United States, and sometimes they can affect us in wintry weather. A tropical system can't. So they do have other influences on the globe just beyond what they're mainly known for, initiating point. So the point of all that is that they are such powerful engines because of that. So when you have that spinning of the eye, which was only 4 nautical miles wide last night, which is incredible, a pinhole eye and a hurricane indicates a very intense wind field. But eventually that gets shrunk down and gets overtaken by a larger eye wall that you couldn't really see all day because it was obscured by clouds. That took over, filled in the middle of the eye. And once it filled in the middle of that eye, that then allowed for it to then begin to at least get knocked down to at least one more category at a Cat 4. But it repeats itself. It's an engine. So what it does is it works really hard like it did in the first several hours there on Monday. It's taking a break, taking a nap. Now that it's getting its new shiny, fresh, chromed up eye wall developing here. Once that gets established and we start to see the opening back up again, and seeing some of the clear skies in the middle of it, that is when you may jump right back into the Cat 5 status, which is fully expected to happen. Yes, there are birds that are still trapped at last report in the middle of the eye. That is very common in any hurricane, but certainly a rapidly developing hurricane. The birds just don't have time to get out of the way. It happens so fast, so they get stuck into a loop. Most birds, especially the species that are found here in the tropical latitudes, are fairly used to this kind of idea and just use the wind to coast along. And at times, there are moments where they're able to at least land before and rest for a second before they jump back up again. So they're excited to get this thing out of the way so they can get back home too. But in some cases, they get dispersed miles away from home, right? All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you future cast. It kind of gives you an idea of how this is going to progress into Florida over the next 36 hours. Here's the center of it. Here is Cancun on the northern part of the Yucatan Peninsula. So let's animate this. Moves to the north and east. Time 10 p.m. tonight. It is now likely getting back to at least a low-end Cat 5 at this point, as it is tracking into the western side of the Gulf there, eastern side of the Gulf, I should say. And why would it go back up to 5? Well, the eye replacement is happening. And 2, there's what we call the Gulf Stream loop that curls in the Gulf of Mexico, goes around Key West, and then goes up to the east coast of Florida and then along the Carolinas. A lot of you hear this referred to as the Gulf Stream. Well, it does have a loop feature that goes into the Gulf. It doesn't go all the way into the Gulf. It just goes right in the entryway and loops around into Key West. Well, that is where the water is getting closer again to about 90 degrees. And it looks like Milton is going to head right into that loop as we get into this afternoon and tonight. So there should be an uptick in intensity as it crosses over that. Once it passes over that loop, then at that point, there should be a gradual weakening. But how fast that happens, well, it's going to be a tougher of a guess, but it should eventually weaken down to about a high end 3 or a low end 4 as it gets close to Tampa. And this would be tomorrow night around 7 o'clock Eastern. Now, this is where things get a little hectic because the center of it and the track is important when it comes to the Tampa Bay, St. Pete area. With the counterclockwise flow that these have, the flow of water and wind, it'll be both, just beating up the west coast of Florida is a bad thing. You get on the northern side, because here's the eye. You know, on the northern side, it's the opposite. The wind blows off the coast of Florida back into the water. That's really what you want to have to avoid a storm surge, obviously, is the water leaving you, not coming into town. So in this case, the water is, surging right just south of downtown Tampa at 7 o'clock night. It's just one model's idea, but giving you an example what we're looking at. This takes the eye right on the southern part of the bay itself. Now, this scenario would be really ugly near on the southern side of Tampa, but if this model is right, would spare much of the downtown area from a lot of storm surge and keep a lot of it flowing more out to sea. If the model was wrong and say the center or the eye of Milton is a little more north of downtown Tampa, that is enough to put them on that section of Florida, south of Tampa, to be on the onshore flow, and storm surge becomes a bigger issue. And this is a scenario that a lot of meteorologists, especially when you study not only just meteorology, but even marine biology, they study this a lot. This is one of these scenarios they bring up in the classroom and say, hey, Someone's going to ask, what's the worst case scenario that we could ever find in Florida? Well, let me show you a map here of Tampa and a hurricane that would come into the bay. This would not be good. This would be a problem. So a lot of students in meteorology are recognizing this scenario because it is a simulation that was brought up to us for decades. Doesn't always line up exactly like this, but the potential for that to happen is what is alarming. Now, it's going to wobble a bit, especially when it does eye wall replacement. It does have a wobbling of sometimes 50 to 60 miles. And that wobbling is, again, going to make a difference in whether or not by the time it stops the wobble, where will it be as it enters into Tampa Bay. And I'm talking about a difference of, say, Shepherdsville to, let's say, Eastern Parkway in Louisville. That is the zone at the center of the eye, tracks into north or south, would make a completely different storyline of what will happen for the west coast of Florida. Very tough forecast this far in advance. And that's why they're like, you know what? Don't risk it. We don't know exactly how the center will be when it gets that into the finer details. So just get out of the way. And I'm hoping everyone has done so already. And if you haven't, get out and get out of the way of this, because it's that unknown of how it will behave along the bay, north and south of it. We don't really know how this would affect a large population of Florida all the way into Orlando would have impacts to that. So just get out of the way. It's the easiest thing to do, and stay safe and get the family members, and things can be replaced, right? And we'll worry about that later. But there you go with the eye moving right over Disney World by sunrise on Thursday. I think they're closed starting Wednesday, I believe. And then they get to the Melbourne, Florida, and to the Space Coast as we head into Thursday morning. But Thursday, again, because of the circulation, most of this is not it's causing beach erosion for the east coast of Florida and Jacksonville, but the worst of it is now east and offshore. And then heads on out toward the Bahamas. Okay, here's the official track from the Hurricane Center. This is, again, new advisory is going to be out in an hour. 145, Cat 4. Still don't see the eye that is redeveloped yet. It's trying. And again, you're going to see this in the visible satellite today. We'll see as soon as it gets a clearing trend to it and we can see down the middle of the stadium effect, then we know that we've got problems this afternoon. Forecast to get to that point, though, then makes the turn. And right now they've got it as a Cat 3. And they have adjusted just slightly south, right on the southern part of Tampa Bay for, again, late tomorrow night and midnight. I'm telling you, that location south or north of the bay, it's big. It is absolutely huge on impacts this will have. And then it quickly moves off to the east. Rainfall, this is going to be a big ordeal when it comes to rain. Don't get me wrong, but it is a progressive hurricane. It's not like Helene that moved into our area and just sat there and stalled and didn't want to move at all. All right, a little different there. Your heaviest of rain is going to fall near. We took another power hit. So everyone good? Type 1 for good. All right, making sure. The heaviest of rain is going to fall on the northern side of that spin. So that's the reason why the modeling is going a half a foot up to 20 inches. It could fall on the northern side there in Tampa. Again, right on the northern side of the circulation. Obviously, if the track's a little more south, that heavier rain will go with it as well. No doubt the northern path, northern section here of Florida, that will be on the northern side of the spin, is going to get the heaviest of rain. Lighter amounts, although a little more of a isolated tornado threat on the southern side. But much of this area of Florida is mainly alligators and crocodiles in that area of Florida. All right. Storm surge, just one of the last maps. This is the one that is the biggest concern as we're looking at, again, a tremendous amount of water being thrown right into that bay area. You can see that inlet. I mean, it nearly matches the wind flow of when Milton moves in. The wind will be aiming right perfectly into that. So it takes all these waves out here in the Gulf and just keeps them. It has nothing to stop. So they can get all the way inland. And that's rare. You just don't see that. A lot of homes then suddenly thought that they're so far inland they couldn't be touched. But in this case, they can be. So this is where the concern and the danger is going to be. Again, that track is crucial on that. A little more to the north, we won't have as much of a strong, we will have a strong impact, but a little more to the south, we would have the opposite. The water would go out to sea. So feel for Tampa. I know we're not in Tampa, but we have a lot of friends or family there, and a lot of you have been asking about it. So I'm trying to make sure it covers as much as it can. But it's not just Tampa. I mean, the entire west coast of Florida is going to have a tremendous amount of water just thrown right up against it there. Okay. I think I said on my tropical side. Let me make sure. I think it is. So any questions that I can try to answer for you all that I haven't already? Because I know, again, if you are watching in Florida, by all means, pay attention to your local officials, the FEMA, emergency managers, National Hurricane Center. If they're telling you to get out, get out. Don't question it whatsoever, because we've seen what happens when people don't do that. While we're doing this, I'm going to put up the live. These are live feeds right now of different areas in Florida. That's St. Petersburg right there. There is Tampa. Again, see the clouds are beginning to approach. Their traffic looks pretty light. And there is the bay itself there into Tampa. So I'll keep this on a loop as well. I'll try to get to some of your questions. What is the lowest pressure I expect Milton to get? Maybe a record. Well, it's already into the top 10 records. I believe it was 897. Don't know if it's going to get down to, like Hurricane Gilbert was back in 1988, which was 888 on the pressure. So it could. The second recycling today is going to be interesting. If it doesn't do it today, I don't see it doing it again for the rest of its lifespan. But it's possible, yes. But it's already a record on the books in the top 10 for several reasons. So great question. Thank you for asking. Let's see. Ted, explain to us how climate change is fueling Milton into a monster it is. Well, we know the waters are warmer than they have been. Then in recent times, that is getting measured every single year. We know that is happening. And then it's not so much that we are changing the amount of warmth in the water, but it's placement. The shifting of these warmer regions are kind of shifting around the globe. That is causing coral reefs to suffer. It's causing, in some cases, tropical cyclones to travel in areas they normally wouldn't travel into. Not sure yet that it has a big impact on tropical intensity. Maybe the rapid intensifying, but really the number of strong hurricane days is nearly matched we've had already in the past decade. So can't find a huge correlation with that just yet. But there is no doubt that we have had some impact because we've been here a fraction of the time that obviously the planet has been here. Yes, there have been warmer periods, and I do believe that the Earth does go through warming and extremely cold cycles. That's how Earth has looked so young, is by shaving off a layer every now and then of its shell, if you will, of extreme weather and conditions, and kind of redesigns itself in a new way. And all of that never happens in a very fast rate. That's very, very slow. But for us and for our species, we're seeing the phase of the warming part, and it is alarming, but there's no doubt you can't imagine that having this much of an influence of human beings on a planet that we were not here a long time ago, that there wouldn't be some type of an impact. So my advice, and it's a non-political one, I am not going to get into that. Why wouldn't you want to contribute to do something to save and protect our planet? Even if it was just fine and wasn't going through a warming phase, you would still want to protect it, I would hope. Just like you would, you're protecting your pet and your family, you want to protect your home and environment. All right, I'll leave it at that. And again, don't get political on me on this, guys. I just want to make sure that it's a lot of stuff, a lot of data we've got to analyze on that one. So thank you, Ted. All right, Tawana, Tampa's airport officially closed as of 9 o'clock this morning. Oh, boy. All right. Well, let's hope that everyone got where they need to. I saw animation of what portions of I-75 look like yesterday, and it was the time lapse just showing just so many folks just evacuating. So people are leaving Tampa and Florida in general on 75. So it is going to be just a big traffic mess, I'm sure, from Alabama, Mississippi, and the Carolinas. Just so many people traveling through there. All right, so what is next? Because I'm running a bit out of time. Sorry about that. As we advance through time, we will be watching leftovers there of Milton. But for us, we do have a warm weekend coming our way. But look at this right here. This is the dumbbell effect that I talked about last week. I can't remember where it's going to be around Nova Scotia into the Northeast. Well, it's wanting to do its thing and allow for what we call a very strong NAO, negative NAO based here of a dip in the jet that happens as we head into early next week. And once that dip settles in, look at that, a rain snow line. Are you kidding me? Rain snow line across Kentucky. How exciting is that? Is it going to snow? No, it's just there. It's going to be dry. But that is the first sign this year. My voice is going away. First sign this year that we've got a cold blast coming our way. But I do think this is important because this may be the piece that leads to the first and early frost potential for the area. May not be in the city, but in outlying areas, pretty good chance here. They're going to get frost alerts for this next week. So again, that'll be about Tuesday and Wednesday. That should arrive in the area, and we'll make it cold. Highs in the 50s, lows into the 30s. Doesn't that sound awesome? All right, let me show you the 10-day, and then I got to get on out of here. So run to that real fast. Whoops, hold on. Put it up for you there. This is going to be 74 today, 78 tomorrow, lower 80s this weekend, and there's that stronger front Sunday night, Monday, and then there's the drop, 50s and even some 30s. I mean, a really gorgeous fall forecast. All right, guys, you take care. I got to run. I will catch you guys coming up on the flip side on midday at 11 a.m. All right, take care.